love you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, look, it is 6:35. We've given the 5-minute grace period. We got a strong crowd so far. I'm sure we'll have people joining us, so we'll just get them admitted as they join. But I'd like to go ahead and get started by saying, first and foremost, good evening, everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces and names on the call. So I just want to thank all of you for joining us for our first virtual meetup of the year and second virtual meetup in totality. We've done a lot of in-person meetups, and this is our second virtual meetup. So I hope everyone's year has been off to a great start. And just in case we're joined by some new people and those unfamiliar with the Jax Podcasters Unite group, my name is Blythe Milligan. I'm one of the co-founders of the group alongside my co-host for this evening, Blythe Brumleve.
Hello. Take it away.
Just a little backstory into the Jax Podcasters Unite. It was started in 2018, and we're a group of Northeast Florida podcasters who meet around town every quarter with the goal to help each other through collaboration and community. So whether you're a seasoned pro or you haven't published an episode yet or an aspiring podcaster, you're in the right place. So thank you for joining us. In lieu of our usual in-person meetups, we wanted to try something a little different this month. We'll be hosting an in-person one come later this quarter, maybe towards the end of February, early March. I'll share some information on that towards the end of this meeting. But we wanted to have this virtual meetup to talk about a project that we've been working on and hinting at for the past couple of months. And that's the Jax Podcasters Unite website. If you've attended our last 2-3 meetups, we've talked about this, I think, every single time, right? We always talk about how excited we are to get this thing off the ground because we think it's the next logical step for this group. And we have, we just have high hopes that it will not only be a great benefit for all of you on this meeting, but we firmly believe it will serve, as the official and online home for podcasters here in North Florida. I'll have Blythe walk us through the site for the next couple of minutes. So everyone will probably be, if you're not already muted, you'll probably just stay muted for the time being. And if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box. And then, of course, we'll do a round of Q&A at the end of the walkthrough. So we can go ahead and, freely talk then. Sound good? All right. Blythe, I'll turn it over to you if you want to start, if you want to share the screen.
Sure. Let me go ahead and share the screen. And so what you're looking at right now is probably pretty familiar if you've been to the website before. I mean, it's a website, so it's not necessarily, it has been informational at first. And then that next step, what we have is we have several phases planned where this first phase is now live. And I think some of you have actually started interacting with it, which is awesome to see. But essentially what it is we want it to be a place where all of the podcasters in North Florida can have a central home. And the reason that I wanted to have this is because a lot of podcasters don't necessarily have the time or the desire to build a website. And while you can have a website through your typical, podcast player of choice, what happens is that there's an SEO issue. And the SEO issue is that for now, it is very difficult to discover new shows. It's very difficult to discover local shows. And so what we wanted this to be was to be a directory for all of the local podcasters here in the 904. So then that way it can serve as kind of like not just your mini website, but also a place where other folks within the community can discover local podcasters already out here creating content. So whether you're covering, national stories or local stories, at least the businesses and the people and the population within the North Florida area will be able to discover new podcasters located right here in Jacksonville. So if you're looking at the homepage right now, this is sort of a typical homepage. And you'll notice the first line is community over competition. That is essentially our entire ethos as far as this group is concerned. We want to make sure that we're creating a platform that is driven to show off the local podcasters, and then, worry about the nuances after that. So our first priority is to create a place where we can show off the local podcasters. And then that next step is to show off the local vendors who are also, making waves around town, whether it's making custom music or making podcast art, or maybe you have a recording space that you rent out to local creators. We want to be a place for not only for the audio creators, but also a place for the vendors that best serve them. And then also be that liaison, not the liaison, but the middleman, where we're not, going to necessarily be involved in negotiating deals with you. We want those to be all on your end. We just want to be that middleman that says, hey, these are all of the different shows that are going on in the North Florida area, in case, a business is checking that out, or someone who works at a business that thinks that that's a good fit, then they can search by either the podcast specifically or the topic in which you're covering. So whatever category that you are placed in Apple, whenever you first sign up for your podcast, that's the category that you are going to be showing on this website. So while some of the pages are pretty basic stuff when it comes to a website, the main page that we want to show off is the all shows. And now, right now, you'll see two shows because that was our testing. It's Botter Show and My Show. Now, what you'll see here is on the left-hand side of the column, you'll see these topics of choice. And the topics of choice are populated by your RSS feed. So if you change your category, or if you update your category in your podcast host of choice, then it will also update here. And then you also see the podcast author. So the podcast author will probably be something that will stay around for a little while until this, sort of left-hand navigation maybe gets a little too busy. Then you'll still be able to search for that specific podcaster, but then you'll also be able to, sort by topic. So let's use Botter's podcast as an example. So we click on this episode, and this is what the episode looks like on the website. And so the way it works is that from the moment you upload a new episode, usually within a few hours, your new episode will also upload here as well. And each one is kind of formatted the same. So you have this player up at the top. The most important thing, I think, as far as like a takeaway is concerned, is that this plays right in the browser. If you are on a website and you hit play on this podcast player, you can go and you can explore other websites. You can check other media, your email, whatever you want, and it will still continue playing. These plays count towards your host downloads. So these aren't taking away, I think with some other platforms, if you take your show and you host it with another platform, you're not necessarily able to see your downloads and still see your stats. With this, these plays come directly and count towards your overall downloads for your podcast. So it's additional exposure for your show in a centralized directory for North Florida. So if you upload custom artwork to your host, it will show right here. Your show notes that you write in whatever you're uploading an episode will all show right here, including links. And then you come down to the bottom, and everybody has sort of, at the bottom of a typical blog article, you'll see an author bio, an author picture, some information about the show. And then also that's what's populating here as well. So at the bottom of every single one of your episode posts will be information about your show. And this pulls all in directly from your RSS feed. Then the only way that we could work this is we wanted a way for, if vendors are, or if potential sponsorships or advertisers are looking for shows to sponsor, then they click on this contact show button, and that button is an email directly to you. So it's essentially added exposure for your show without having to do much more work. I've been experimenting with this system on my own podcast, on my own website for the better part of the last year. And the most encouraging thing, I mentioned earlier about SEO, the most encouraging thing now is that close to 50% of all of my episode plays are now coming straight from the web browser, which you might think like that's really weird. Like that's kind of crazy. Like who listens to a podcast in, a desktop format, but apparently a lot of people do. So that's just, I think, something to keep in mind as far as the SEO discussion, because right now from an SEO perspective, search engines are only crawling the title of your show. They're not crawling anything else. So your show notes and things like that, they're not crawling that. So it's more difficult to rank from an SEO perspective. With this method, this allows the show notes portion of your show or of your episode to register with search engines because it's loaded into a blog post. So not only are you getting the added benefit of the title that's being searched, but the show notes as well. So that's the typical layout for a show. Now, from a potential sponsorship perspective, or somebody who maybe want to partner up or do a search maybe for other shows in the area to record live together. There's all kinds of different ideas that we can play off of each other. But that's just a sort of an overall view of what the platform, what the directory looks like for 904 audio creators. And like I said, all of it is populated from your RSS feed. If you haven't already, I saw that a few of you did, which is fantastic that you've submitted your RSS feed already. If you're not sure of where your RSS feed is, I think you can still see my screen, right? So this is an example of, in the Buzzsprout backend, if any of you are hosting with Buzzsprout, you should be able to find your directory and find your RSS feed. That's essentially all I need. So that you would copy it, you would come back over to the Jax Podcasters Unite website, and then we have a submit your show tab. And so what I have on this page is that do you want to know about future events? If not, no worries. But you would enter in your RSS link here, and then you would submit it. Then my tech team would then take that information, essentially your RSS feed, and then plug it into, so you would have your own landing page, which I didn't even show that part yet. But you would have your own landing page for all of your episodes. So no, that's the wrong page. Let me bring up, Digital Dispatch, for example. So if we pull up this podcast page, if it will work. Let me try this one. Oh, well, it's showing all of the episodes here. So where can hold on, live testing. So click on the author name, duh. So this, if you're familiar with Buzzsprout, then this looks very similar to what a Buzzsprout website would look like. But this is also pretty useful because, as you can see there, it's a full episode list. They're treated like blog posts, but if you were to click on it, the player shows right there, or the user can then click read more and see the entire episode, and to see it and be able to play it and all that good stuff. So that's I think that's about it as far as like the website tour, but the directory is really sort of the key as far as, creating that central database of who is out here creating podcasts locally in the North Florida area. Are there any ones that maybe we can, record together or work with together? And then also a place for, businesses and potential advertisers to be able to come to the directory and search by topic, and then be able to match instantly with some of the podcasters who are already out here creating great content. So it will serve as sort of like the directory, for lack of a better phrase. I feel like I've said that 1,000 times, but it will serve as the connection mechanism between advertisers and people within the North Florida area that offer, different kind of services that may be of interest to you, so you can help monetize your podcast from the local level, because there are podcasters at the local level. Botter is a great example of that, who are partnering with local businesses and generating revenue from that. So that was our ultimate goal, was to be able to not only create a place where you can see all of the different, creators in town, but then also be a place where we can set up connections between businesses that are looking for audio creators and then the creators themselves.
Well said. And I'll piggyback what Blythe just mentioned. I've been fortunate enough to have two local businesses sponsor the podcast. One is a comic book podcast, or comic book shop, which makes sense because one of my shows, The Short Box, is all about comic books and pop culture. And then we recently had a local tattoo shop also sponsored the show last year as well. And I'll say something about both of them, is that they do take pride in the sense that they see a local podcast, and they know that the listenership, it's safe to say that most of our listenership is based out of Jacksonville. And, it's beneficial for them. Not only are they supporting another local business or another local, project or entity, but they know that, more than likely their target audience that they're trying to get is also going to, it'll be reached. So to Blythe's point, I think it's a very promising thing to have one centralized place that, a forward-thinking business or potential sponsor could look at and, filter by categories. If they're I'm just kind of spitballing here, but let's say they are a local sports bar, to be able to filter and find local sports podcasts. it saved them trouble, or it saved them one less step. And I think it's just, kind of streamlines that partnership conversation, especially since they can contact your show directly. I think having this website up and running points, it's I think that's the key word I'll probably repeat a lot, is just centralized. We have one spot where someone can go to find out what are the podcasts coming out of my city. And if I'm a sponsor or a business and I want to, think about ways to promote my business, podcast is kind of like the thing to do now. So I think there's a lot of benefit in that regard. And Blythe, I want to highlight some of the other benefits you mentioned, though. Not only the potential to have sponsors easily view and find shows that kind of fit within their business realm, but you mentioned that the site, or the future plans with the sites and the updates that we got in Q, would also kind of enhance the website and directory. Well, I'm sorry, the website to be a an all-in-one toolbox for podcasters. As many of you know, at our meetups, we've got folks that edit audio, that we've got, like Gary comes to mind, that have their own podcast studio. So we want to incorporate, those.
Shannon too. Sorry,
That's right, Shannon,
there's a couple locations in town already, which just proves the growing needs of the market.
Exactly. So I wanted to highlight once again, like the goal of this being a toolbox where you as a podcaster could go to this website, and if you needed to, like Blythe, for a good example, she had a guest come into town and that she wanted to record a podcast. Instead of having them come to our house, she had them go to a nice podcast studio. Those are kind of like tools that we want to have readily available for podcasts. So, a directory for not only shows, but also tools and things that would help a podcaster.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think, even podcast art comes to mind, custom music comes to mind. These are all things that I have found myself needing at some point or another. And it was just through referrals that I was able to find those connections. So hopefully we're taking the referral mindset and putting it into a centralized location. So, I mean, it's going to be a pretty, I think, proud moment for, I don't know, I can only speak for myself, but to be able to see all of the local 904 creators all in one place. I mean, we have the Facebook group, of course, but that's another story. But having a digital platform that is separate from a social media algorithm that we can point folks to, we can point local businesses to, in order to create these partnerships and further expand your reach. We tried to build something that we would want as podcasters. So hopefully you guys appreciate this too. I know we have a couple questions over in the chat. I'm not sure, Badr, did you want to hit questions first, or how did you want to handle next steps?
We'll see. I mean, we've talked about some of the benefits. How to submit was fairly quick and straight to the point. If you've got your RSS feed, which regardless of what podcast hosting company you use, you should be able to find your RSS feed pretty easy. As Blythe pulled up, Buzzsprout makes it, they've got a tab for RSS feed. So really filling out that form, letting us know if you want to be communicated about future events. In that regard, not to say that we won't. The Facebook group's going to stay around, right? We're going to still use it as a means of making the of spreading the word about the meetups, having it as kind of a place for discussion until we figure out how to incorporate that into the website. But but it's really easy to get listed on that directory. So we talked about that. Did we talk about any improvements or updates or future updates?
One quick question for Abigail. I did see your submission come through. I did see Phil's submission come through. So when you submit your RSS feed, we're pulling in the information that you add to your RSS feed. So that's actually a great point that you bring up, Abigail, because when the contact show button, that's going to be tied to the email address on your RSS feed. We built it that way just in case, things happen between hosts, emails change, things like that. So if you change your email at your host level, it will change on the website too. But as far as like notifications for future events, that's a good question, because that is something that we will probably use from the form that you submit. So we'll probably, I might have to separate those. I'm going to make a note about that, because people are submitting to find out about future events that might not have a podcast. So I probably need to, I'm going to make a note of that to change that. That's and I don't know if there are any other questions that I missed, but that was one that I definitely wanted to hit on before we moved into the next talk.
Yeah, so we had one and pretty similar ones from Eric from the Wait For It podcast and even Warren. They both said they submitted their podcast probably, earlier this week. So they're both hoping that it comes through on the directory.
Yes, because those, it's a process of setting that up with my tech team. So now they're aware of their responsibilities when someone inputs their show into it. So they're kind of already prepared on their end to start handling the influx. I imagine we'll get some more after tonight's meetup. So I'm hoping to have all of those different sources added in by next week. Tops 2 weeks tops, I would say for sure. But it's going to be a little bit of a process just because of the amount that we have to get onboarded first. You see Botters and I here because we used our own as sort of like the dummy testing, just to make sure it all works kind of properly and as it should. So the next step is adding in everybody that has submitted so far.
And I think there was a question earlier about how this would, when you mentioned that the plays from the Jax Podcasters Unite website would still count as a download on, let's say like if you're hosting your show on Buzzsprout, it would still count as a download. Someone had asked how would it show up as a download, and I'm looking at mine, and it'll probably either show up as Windows computer, I think unknown device sometimes
Web
registers as
browser.
like a web browser. So it'll show up in one of those mini categories that I know Buzzsprout breaks down devices.
On mine in particular, because I've been doing this since last summer, it shows up as web browser.
Okay.
So the way that I theorize how people are finding the show is that they're just going to Google and they're doing a search. But I'm also very conscious of that now from an SEO mind. So when I create my show titles, I'm not putting, episode whatever at the beginning of it. I'm putting the actual title of the show. So like an example is like that first example that I showed, the history of shipping with Sal Mercogliano. The history of shipping is the phrase I'm going after. And I'm also going after Sal Mercogliano because he was my interview guest. So if anybody Googles him, I ideally want my interview with him to show up. So if you're thinking of it from that lens, when you're uploading your podcast or you're writing your show notes, think of it from that lens of this is how I want it to show up, not only in my own podcast feed. So it's your preferences, of course, but how it would also show up from the blog post perspective, because this is essentially is a blog post. So that's how that's where my theory is coming from, that these visitors are going to Google and they're searching for these interviews. And that's how they're discovering them, is because of the SEO value that's not only in the blog post title, but in the show notes as well. Because that's the big issue with podcasts, is that their only crawlable part of a podcast right now is the title of your episode. The rest of it is not crawlable. I imagine that Google will change that in the future, but it will only count towards Google Podcasts. It won't count towards the other big players. So it's one of those things that we're trying to get ahead of the curve. And right now it's working, because close to 50% of all of my episode plays now come from the web browser.
Yeah, I think that SEO is definitely a game changer.
Yeah, because it's something that I think it's a complex topic that not a lot of people are fully aware of. But I've been lucky enough to work in the SEO realm for the better part of the last decade. So that knowing that was an issue is really the only benefit of creating this tool is the SEO benefit, and then also creating a central source for all of your episodes on a platform that is owned by you. And so technically, that this is a directory. So it's not, we like to think of it that it's owned by everybody that's within the directory. So from that lens, it's, whatever you see on the site, whatever kind of improvements that you would like to see in the future, if there's, maybe an issue or something where you're seeing it, 9 times out of 10, it's fixable on your host end, and then it just auto populates on this website.
Well said. And I definitely want to emphasize, or put a spotlight on the fact that, it's a free service. And I think it's easier to think about it as an additional directory to have your podcast. I think that's something I usually tell all of our new members that come to our meetups, when they ask, where should I have my podcast? And the answer is everywhere you possibly can, right? Because you never know what app someone uses, what preference they have for listening to your podcast. You just want to make sure you cover all your grounds. As long as you're not paying for to have your podcast listed anywhere, submit it, and really all we're asking is the same thing that most directories ask for, which is your RSS feed. So as long as you've got, your details figured out on your on your podcast host's site, then it should be an easy transition to get listed on ours. And once again, to kind of spotlight, what Blythe had mentioned as far as the JPU's ethos, community over competition. We would not be able to build a directory if not for everyone, right? So once again, it's kind of leaning in on the fact that we're building something for this community, and we want to see it grow because we know that there is so much talent in the audio creators and podcasters here in town.
For sure. Well said.
Thank you. So I think for the most part, we've kind of talked ad nauseum about the website, how easy it is to get your show submitted. I'll go ahead and kind of reiterate, if you haven't submitted your show and your RSS feed to get listed on the directory, please do so. Share it with a friend. If you know a podcaster, whether locally or here in the Northeast Florida area, that would benefit from this, we definitely encourage you to share the website and promote it as well. I do want to open it up to any questions, topics, anything JPU website specific first. And you can go off mute too if you'd like instead of typing one out.
Just thought this is very cool, and you all did a fantastic job.
Oh, thank
And
you.
I'm very excited to see it live.
Thank
I appreciate
you.
that, Abigail. Thank you. All right. One more call for any questions. And you know what? We can open it up since we do got some time. Does anyone have any, I guess, just questions in general, whether it be about the group or hell, we'll even take, I guess, some podcasting questions if you got any.
So
I'd probably say just really quick. First off, everything looks amazing. But second off, what with people already kind of working in the background, what is the ETA? When do you guys see like those initial shows that are submitted? When do you guys see that getting pushed out to the website?
I would have thought that they already would have been, but that's an issue that I took up with my tech team today. So hopefully we will have an answer by tomorrow. It was one of those things where I checked it today and I was like, God damn it, they didn't get them added yet.
That was a nice way of her saying, I've already gotten someone's ass this morning about why your show is not listed. All right, give it a day or two.
Solid.
Solid. Yeah.
So that's why I say a week, just because I know that there are probably going to be some more shows submitted tonight, but it is a relatively easy add to the site. So I'm hoping that, they're waiting for all of them to come in one bunch, and then that way we can knock them all out at once. I'm hoping by mid next week. That's fingers crossed. I don't see why it wouldn't happen beforehand.
Agreed. All right. Al, it looks like you're raising your hand. Do you want to go off mute or ask a question?
Yep, I was raising my hand. Good evening, everybody. How y'all doing?
Hey,
Good evening now.
Hey, man. First, I didn't want anything. I just wanted to let y'all know that this site is like extremely dope. The moves that I'm making extremely dope.
Thank you.
We will be I'll be submitting like my 85 shows soon. So
there's a delay.
Yeah.
So exactly. There's a delay. That's me. But great job on everything, man. Great job on everything.
Yeah. Because I think as the more shows we get, I mean, to Blythe's point and getting like those SEO points up, I think ideally, at some point, anytime someone types in the words Jacksonville and podcast, this directory and website should be the first thing they get. And, that should be all they need to go for. That should be the only place they need to go to, right? Like to whether it be to find a new podcast to listen to, or find a podcast to work with, or find ways to, or learn how to launch one, or find a studio or a mixer, whatever it may be. Like we've got high goals for the website, and we think it's absolutely possible with this community that we've built.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I'll give everyone some time to, I guess, think about any last minute questions we got. I'll just share some things that I want to share with the group, some last minute stuff. Like I mentioned, the Facebook group right now at the moment, still kind of our central place for updates on when like the next meetups take place. as well as home to already some great resources and discussions and information related to podcasting and conversations related to the medium. That page will still exist. We'll continue to use that to post information on the quarterly meetups and encourage conversations, discussions, and questions. It's just easy for right now until we get the JPU site, fully up and running and going.
It is. There are plans to build more of that community aspect into this site. So then that way, the people who refuse to use Facebook or get rid of Facebook for whatever reason, or don't check it that often, we're looking at some different opportunities or different functions to add in with that respect.
Well said. And as far as next meetups, we do one every quarter. So we're due for one for the first quarter of this new year. We've locked down a venue at Ruby Beach Brewing Company. It's located downtown. If you haven't been, it is a fantastic venue. They've got a great outdoor area that'll definitely accommodate this group in our size. They're excited to host us, and they're even letting us use their event space that's right above the bar and stuff. That's going to be planned for some time late February, early March. I'll have an Eventbrite page up here in the next 2 weeks once we lock that down, but it's definitely going to happen here in the next month.
Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, and you know what, Shannon, if you don't mind, if you want to come off mute, I want to put a spotlight on Shannon in regards to, tools and things for podcasters. Shannon has just opened up a podcaster studio, and it turns out it's right around the corner from Ruby Beach Brewing, which will be the venue for our next meetup. Shannon, do you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about that?
Hey guys. Thanks for the shout out. Yeah, we are literally right around the corner from Ruby Beach Brewing. Actually, we're going to be doing our pop-up studio for our new podcast called Jax at Ruby Beach Brewing January 29th at their brunch and boogie from 11 to 3 on a Saturday. So if you like beer, and plus they have a full bar.
Yes, they do.
And they're going to have vendors and stuff like that. If you're looking for something to do on a Saturday morning, afternoon, swing by January 29th. But yeah, our studio is right around the corner from there. We're a music and multimedia studio. So we have podcast suites. We can do videos. We make original music, and, I'll be at the meetup since it's right around the corner. I don't have an excuse. If there's anybody that wants to have a tour, we can kind of, troop around the corner and go up the elevator, willing to, make it available to everybody if you want to see it.
Yeah, hell yeah, yeah. I still got it on my calendar. We're gonna get a tour here soon, Shannon. We got you.
Yeah, Al's been there. Al Pete's been there.
Okay, nice. Al Pete. Look, if Al Pete gives a thumbs up, then I know it's of quality. All right. Good stuff.
Hey, listen, don't mind me. I'm moving, seeing what's going on.
Shannon, what's the name of the? I'm sorry, Shannon. Actually, what's the name of the studio and can a website too, or any contact?
Yeah, I'll put the website in
the chat.
The chat.
Perfect.
But it's Mixed Theory Studios.
Nice.
Awesome. Good
and
stuff.
And we're actually, sorry, misspelled that one. Sorry, mistyped. We are actually doing a music and multimedia network called MTS Jax FM. That's launching February 22nd. And I think that there's some opportunities to do some cross promote between, your new website, Jax Unite, and MTS Jax FM. So hook me.
Definitely.
Go ahead and reach out. We can talk about that.
Heck yeah.
Good. All right, folks, that is everything. I think we're getting to a good stopping point and wrap up. But once again, any last minute questions, comments, topics that we want to discuss, hell, any love for Blythe. I mean, she absolutely did the damn thing on the website. I cannot take any credit for the website. So I'm going to give her a round of applause on my mixer.
Get out of here.
Hey, there we go. Good job, Blythe. Woo!
Thank you. I want to hear the same applause when that bill comes.
I got you. All right, folks. Once again, I appreciate everyone. Absolutely, you did crush it. Thank you, Warren. Appreciate everyone hopping on this one. We'll keep it short and sweet. You guys get back 20 minutes of your evening. Stay tuned for the official event page for next month's, or this quarter's meetup. I'm sorry, this quarter's meetup. And yeah, please submit your show if you haven't to Jax Podcasters Unite. There should be a link in the Eventbrite page at that. And feel free to share it out as well. If you know a podcaster or someone interested in podcasting, send them that website, have them submit the show if they got one. And,
and real quick, I know you're trying to close it out too, but there's also a past meetups button over there too, and it includes all of the photo galleries. So we've been lucky enough to have photographers come out to most of the events. Some of the events are just Botter and I snapping on the side, but a lot of them professional photographers in the local area that have come through and taken photos of the meetup. So if you've been to any of those, you might want to check those out. You might find some cool pictures that I don't know if you want to download or if you want to share it, but it's there if you want to.
Well said. That's right. No longer do you have to be like, I swear I was at a meetup. I promise it's real. It's, it's not just on Facebook. We've got all of that documented, which is, I guess, a good point to bring up too, is that, the website will act as kind of like this archival documentary tool as well to record all the amazing people that are part of the Jax Podcasters Unite. So I think with that being said, we can go ahead and wrap this meeting up. Appreciate all of you. Like Blythe said, I'm recording on my end. We'll have a video version as well. We'll post that on the Facebook for anyone that wasn't able to make it or had to drop early. But with that being said, y'all have a great evening. I bid you all adieu now. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.